Well, as promised, let's talk a bit of Spurs. And I'll tell you what, Jose Mourinho, when it comes to his second season, it's quite a sensational resume. Yet, you take a look at the expectations surrounding Spurs as we kick off the new season, and they are low. Really low, Ian. It's incredible. I was looking back at the predictions that we did at the start of last season, and there's a lot of talk about Spurs being in the top four. They've fallen so far, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, and everybody's getting a bit of an insight into it in this documentary series, The All or Nothing, going behind the scenes at Tottenham, which rather brushes over Mauricio Pochettino's departure from the club. I think it does touch on the fact that they started last season with a much bigger hangover than we all realise from losing the Champions League final the year before. It took them some time to get themselves going last season. When Mourinho came in, they were 14th. He got them up to 6th and in the Europa League. So you have to give him credit for that. But the performances weren't great. I couldn't see any real identity about the side. And we've seen in this documentary series, he's told the players right from the word go, you're too nice. I want to see you to be, well, words we can't use on this broadcast.
Yes.
But he wants them to be nastier. So it might be a different type of Tottenham. A more fighting Tottenham, maybe a kind of change that Arteta's trying to make at Arsenal as well. So this season will be interesting, but the opposition is very, very tough to break into even the top four for them.
And this is the problem, Craig, in the sense that Chelsea have made all of these signings. Arsenal, you felt, have turned a corner with Arteta. They're looking promising. But for Spurs, it's difficult to hang your hat on too much optimism at all, really.
Well, the graphic that you put up with his second season, but he was always at clubs that had big transfer budgets, albeit at not so much Porto in the early days where he did an unbelievable job, but most of the other clubs he was able to go out and replenish the squads. Obviously, Man United at the end, that was more difficult and was one of the reasons that he left in the end. But you know what, Højbjerg from Southampton, Joe Hart and Doherty from Wolves was a good player. But if you're Harry Kane, for example, and you're sitting back and, you know, you had an injury hit into the season before, you had an injury hit into last season, the football wasn't great. Yeah, they jumped up to 6th spot. But what are you thinking as a guy who's now 27 and really coming is in the peak years of your career? You know, and there's not really a transfer budget again. So there's no expectations for me. For Spurs, yeah, I mean, I think he'll have them hard to beat again and well organised, and maybe they will have a nastier streak about them. But I think ultimately against the bigger teams or most of the teams in the top half, they'll allow teams to boss possession, and that's really not what we've come to know of Tottenham. And I do think it's going to be another quite frustrating season where Mourinho's going to be questioning about his tactics, questioning about his style, and I think we're going to see a split in terms of, you know, the relationship between him and the Tottenham board, because, you know, we see it all the time. His frustrations boil over. The fans' frustration will start to boil over. And Daniel Levy's not just going to go all of a sudden, oh, well, here's 200 million. It's just not going to happen.
Craig, just on that nasty point, can you make players, teams nastier, or is it pretty much a natural thing?
You got to find the players that are prepared to do what you need them to do, and you know, you can, as the old saying, you can take a horse to water, but you can't always make it drink. And you know, that's just the way. So I don't think these Tottenham players are soft. Put it that way. Maybe he wants them to have a little bit more edge, but I don't think you get to a Champions League final and you play in the manner in which they played, particularly under Pochettino, with a softness about you. I just think maybe last year they were starting to feel a bit sorry for themselves, you know, and you know, they seen a manager go, they saw performances that were poorer than they'd been used to. Then they saw a new manager come in, you know, he wants to make some changes. And all of a sudden, some players start to feel a wee bit sorry for themselves. So I think that's more of a problem than trying to make a player nasty. You don't have to be nasty. You just have to go out with an aggressive attitude and do the job.
Shaka, it's telling, isn't it? Like, considering we do this show every day, I think if we were to do a pie chart of how much we've talked about Spurs over the last 2 months, it would be a very small slice. And that's indicative of people's expectations of them going into this new season.
Yeah, indicative of people's expectations, but not indicative of Jose Mourinho's teams. And to that graphic that Craig mentioned that you had up earlier, I think what you saw from Jose Mourinho and that second season success let's keep in mind that at the time he's regarded as one of the best managers in world football. I'm not sure he still has that standing today. And the teams that he went into bought what he was selling, whether it was siege mentality and woe be unto us, as you saw at Inter Milan and then Real Madrid, even if it did become unraveled eventually. I don't think anybody at Spurs is buying that this time around. And then his style of football isn't in keeping with who Spurs were under Pochettino, which brought them success and a hangover, yes. But who Spurs fans expect their team to be. I think it's more likely that you see a number of Spurs brighter stars get frustrated with the negative football and with the defending and what you've seen from Jose Mourinho over well, not just the last few months, but the last few jobs. And you start to see the likes of Harry Kane maybe seriously consider a move away. Dele Alli seriously consider a move away. And if those two start, even if they do it privately and not publicly, if those two start feeling unsettled, I think the knock-on effect will be huge.
Ian mentioned it, Craig, the fact that this documentary, of course, been doing the rounds. So the exchange between Danny Rose and Jose Mourinho went viral. I'm just intrigued, is that a conversation that you would ever have with your manager?
Listen, that was so soft. It was incredible. I mean, the fact that that went viral tells you all you need to know about what some people think goes into training ground arguments and debates these days, because that was a classic sit-down chat with the manager. I thought, Danny Rose's first comment was a rather stupid, where he said, if you don't want me to play, be here. If you don't want me to play, I might as well stay at home. Well, you can't stay at home just because a manager doesn't select you. That's his opinion. But it was a classic case of a player making the argument, look, you said I trained well, so you put me in the game. You told me I didn't play well, and then I don't play well again. I don't play again for 3 or 4 games. How do you expect me to perform at my best if you don't leave me in the team? And then the manager coming back saying, well, I think I've got a guy here who's fitter and stronger and quicker and was doing a better job. And so it's a classic case of Section 2-3s here, where the player's not feeling he's getting enough game time and the manager's not sure about him in this case. But trust me, that's about as soft as they come. I had a meeting after a game one evening when I come back from Aberdeen and I hadn't played in the game and I hadn't come off the bench, and I had a sit down in the office about midnight, it was, with John Barnes. Eric Blackie's assistant at the time was in the dressing room. And I said to Barnesy, when we were in Aberdeen, I want to see you. And he said, see me when you get back at the ground. Now, it's a 3-hour drive, and I think he thought I might have calmed down. And I went into that room, and we screamed at each other. And John Clark, the kit man, who was a member of the Lisbon Lions team in 1967, he played for that great Celtic team. He was the kit man at the time. The kit room was about 100 yards away. Next day, he said to me, bloody hell, big man, I heard every word of that down here. So if people think that is an angry exchange between player and manager, they have no idea. They really have no idea.
What about him throwing his teammates under the bus, Shaq?
Yeah, that was odd. But, again, I'm with Craig. So the first I saw this is when you sent it to me, Dad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is a training ground bust-up. So I'm sitting there watching it, expecting Danny Rose and Jose Mourinho to start throwing punches any minute, be rolling around on the desk in his office, something to happen. And then all of a sudden it cuts to Rose talking about, well, sitting in some chair, talking about, well, I'll have to move on. That's three minutes of my life that you owe me, Dan. I'm not sure I'm ever going to get back. That was a total waste. That was a total waste. I was expecting, and I replied, and you could testify to this. My reply to that was team.
Yes.
And that was, it was nothing.
At what point did he throw his teammates under the bus, Daniel?
When he said that.
He said there are others. He said there are others who train poorly, play poorly, and they're still in the starting 11. That's about as controversial as that interview got. Let me tell you, I was totally disgusted. Well, disgusted.
For now into this, he sent me the thing. He said, "Have a watch of this. We'll talk about it in the show." I had a watch of it, and I thought, oh, well, there you go. But when I used to go in, that's the kind of thing I would say to a manager. If he said to me, well, you're not doing it from midfield or whatever. I say, well, how many goals are you getting from midfield? How many of the others getting you? That's not throwing teammates under the bus. That's stating your case. If Tottenham are not defending well, and that's either black or white by results, then you go in and you say, listen, here's the facts. We've lost the last 3 out of 4 games or whatever it is. We've not kept a clean sheet, and you're not playing me. That's not throwing teammates under the bus. That's stating your case to a manager. But please, this amazes me, this 2020, where we are, the modern football, where everyone thinks the smallest thing is a big deal. Trust me, it is not. That is kindergarten stuff compared to what normally goes on.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.